Over 5,000 men, plus women and children, have followed Jesus far from any town. As the sun goes down, a serious logistical problem emerges. Out in this remote, desolate area, there are no markets, no supply chains, and no shelter. This massive crowd is entirely exposed and growing hungrier by the minute. The disciples recognize the impending disaster. Their immediate reaction is to tell Jesus to send everyone away to the surrounding villages so the people can fend for themselves. When we face an obstacle that completely dwarfs our visible resources, the instinct is almost always to retreat. We look at the deficit, assume there is no way through, and try to avoid the problem entirely. But Jesus gives the disciples a completely disruptive instruction. He says they don't need to go away. You give them something to eat. Philip immediately does the math. He calculates that even if they had 200 pennies, it would barely be enough to give everyone a single bite of bread. To understand Philip's panic, look at the currency. A single Roman penny was the standard wage for a full day of hard labor. Philip is looking at a cost of 200 days of wages, and even then, the crowd would starve. But the disciples' pockets are completely empty. By every earthly economic metric, the equation fails. The demand is massive, and the available supply is statistically zero. In the middle of this logistical nightmare, one young boy happens to have a small lunch packed by his mother: 5 small barley loaves and 2 little fish. Barley loaves were the most basic, inexpensive food available to the peasant class in ancient Palestine. They were tough, dense, and meant for simple survival. Against a starving crowd of over 5,000 adults, this tiny amount of food is a rounding error. Yet, instead of hiding his meal for his own preservation, the boy steps forward and hands his entire lunch to the disciple Andrew. It takes immense trust to hand over a resource that you know falls wildly short of the requirement. The boy didn't have the complete answer. He simply offered what he had. Jesus takes those 5 loaves and 2 fish. Instead of panicking over the deficit, he creates calm and order by instructing the immense crowd to sit down in rows. He then looks up and gives thanks for the food, establishing that the power about to be displayed comes directly from a reliance on the Heavenly Father. This animation illustrates the sheer scale of the mechanics at play. Starting with a massive deficit of 5,000 empty units, Jesus breaks the bread and the disciples begin to hand it out. As they pass the food, the supply never runs dry. A multiplier effect overtakes the deficit. They continue distributing until everyone has eaten their fill, gathering 12 full baskets of leftover fragments. The math of this miracle defies human logic. But the massive, impossible equation is only solved after the tiny human offering is placed into Jesus' hands. This event mirrors a deep historical pattern. Centuries earlier, God sustained the Israelites wandering in a barren desert by sending them daily manna from heaven. By utilizing the standard, everyday meal of fishermen and farmers to perform this miracle, Jesus demonstrates that God is actively invested in our mundane, physical survival, rather than just abstract spiritual ideas. But that leaves us with a lingering question. If Jesus possessed the divine capability to conjure a feast out of thin air, why did he deliberately require the young boy's tiny lunch at all? Jesus engineered this specific scenario to test Philip and the other disciples. He wanted to prove that divine intervention regularly invites and actively requires human participation. The young boy's quiet decision to hand over his picnic serves as a highly practical blueprint for anyone facing insurmountable odds today. When you encounter a crisis that exceeds your capacity, you aren't expected to possess the perfect mathematical solution or the vast resources to fix it yourself. Your only responsibility is to gather whatever small, seemingly inadequate talents, resources, or faith you currently have and offer them without holding back. God sustains us by taking those small, faithful contributions and multiplying them through His own capability, providing care that stretches far beyond the limits of human logic. Over